Yeah, I get that. I understand, but
You feel what I'm saying? I'm looking at it like that.
trust me, brother. I get you. I get you. I just okay. Let's see what we got here. All right. I'm gonna get started at 3:05. All right. I'm gonna get started at 3:05. So we'll do our Father prayer. We'll read our 10 Commandments, and then we're gonna get started on our uh, continual scripture reading. How you guys like this, by the way? Like I know it's different from lessons, but like I said, ultimately I think it's necessary. You got any takes on it, brother Rick? What's up? What's up, man? Shabbat shalom, man.
You ain't started it.
I told him, I said, I'm gonna give you 5 minutes. 3:05 is the start time. What? I got a video, man. Oh yeah, I wouldn't mind it. Like I told him, I actually performed a baptism once. Um, yeah, I mean, I could tell you, we went right there to the Mississippi, bro.
The river
Yes, I got a video of it. I'll send it to you.
in the Mississippi.
Yes, yes. They didn't have swimming pools and nice chlorine filled, clean. What you call it? Them boys. Hey, remember with the Syrian Naaman when he went to Elisha, and he said, I want to be cleansed of this leprosy, and Elisha told him, "Man, go dump yourself in the Jordan." He's like, man, that dirty old river, man. They got cleaner rivers in Damascus, man. I don't need this. He's like, man. Told him to go back, and he dumped himself in that dirty Jordan. I know we didn't go out that far. We was, nah. I ain't gonna lie, it's yeah, you in the pool. Yeah, oh, he let go of your the nose went up, your water went up your nostrils, huh?
You did the brother in the pool. Oh, yeah, y'all did it together. But all y'all did.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. You saw anybody else? Because I'm about to go on ahead. All right, let's we might as well just go on ahead and get started. All right, it's 3:05. Yep. I mean, look, I gave you 5 minutes. So, all right, we're gonna go on ahead and get started. We're gonna do our Father prayer, and then we're gonna read our 10 Commandments. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever. Amen. All right. Brother Kerwin, if you don't mind reading 10 Commandments, Exodus chapter 20, starting at verse 1 through 17.
Reading of the law, Exodus chapter 20, verse 1. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heavens above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God gives thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Thou shalt not covet thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's.
All right, thank you for that scripture reading. May the Most High bless the hearing and reading of his word. Today we're going to be going over or continuing where we left off at in our reading of the commandments. And not just reading, but trying to comprehend and fully understand what these commandments are saying, irregardless of whether they are applicable to us today or not. I think a lot of people have that as an issue, making it like, well, how important is a commandment, even if it's not applicable to us today? And it's very much important, especially when it comes to doctrines that these commandments tie into. All right, so as I mentioned before, I'm not going to go over this whole presentation again like I did last time, but we went over this presentation, and I was showing you that many times in the scriptures, the Bible tells us to get understanding, okay? And the understanding comes from the knowledge or the precepts and the commandments that we have given to us by the Most High, all right? That's what wisdom is. The Bible literally describes wisdom as the keeping of the commandments and the fear of the Most High, obviously, which is the beginning. So you fear the Most High, and then you start to read and understand his commandments, and not just the carnal commandments, right, that most people know, but going deeper into the spiritual aspects of the commandments and how we're supposed to conduct ourselves, right, within our spirits. So we went over some of these verses that talk about that stressed that point. Some of the wise men in the Bible, they had very good knowledge on these commandments. They didn't just know some of them. They knew it like it was the back of their hand, okay? And so that's how we need to be if we really truly want to operate in the obedience in the Most High, okay? So I brought up some of these verses. I showed you this in Luke, in Peter, in 2nd Ezra, and basically what those verses were outlining was that even when you get right down to the gospel, the words, the good news, the good tidings that is spoken about in the New Testament, tying together the old and the new together, all of these things comes back to the keeping of the commandments. And it's not just about commandments, it's about being obedient to what God says, okay? So we went over that, and then I ended off here in the book of Baruch, where it talked about how the commandments are the things that are pleasing to God, right? The things that are pleasing to God it said that he made them known to us. How foolish would it be to have the things that are pleasing to God right before our eyes, and we just passively look over it because we think we know it all because we don't eat pork or keep the Sabbath day. And there's many other nuanced things that, again, many of us miss because we only focus on the things that our previous teachers taught us about. So this is why it's important to just go through the commandments, line for line, verse for verse, commandment for commandment, and really try to break it down, even if something is applicable to us or not, okay? So that's the end of that. I wasn't going to go over that again. I just wanted to highlight what was already stated before, just quickly, okay? So last week, if you guys will recall, we went over Deuteronomy chapter 16, 17, and 18, okay? Last week we went over Deuteronomy 16, the last time, so 4 weeks ago, we went over Deuteronomy 16, 17, and 18, okay? Some of the highlights or some of the applicable things within those commandments that we talked about was knowing what a prophet is and what a prophet is not. Right? A lot of people are proclaiming themselves to be priests, to be prophets in our communities. All right, these guys are charlatans. The Bible tells you exactly what these titles are, and many of our people just blindly follow people because they have a title behind the name that they have given themselves. The scripture shows you exactly what those are. We went over that. We talked about serving idols. We talked about the difference between a wizard and a necromancer, why we needed prophets. Those were some of the things that are mentioned in Deuteronomy 18 and chapter 17. Here, in chapter 19, we're going to discuss some of those same things. As a matter of fact, I think we went over chapter 19 too. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We went over 19 too, because 19 talked about the cities of refuge and a false witness. Okay, so that's how I remember that. A false witness. Do we remember what this one is? Because I think this one is applicable to us today. This one is very much applicable to us today. The false witnesses. All right. One witness shall not rise up against any man for any iniquity or for any sin, and any sin of any sin. At the mouth of 2 witnesses or at the mouth of 3 witnesses shall the matter be established. If a false witness rise up against any man to testify against him that which is wrong, then both the men between whom the controversy is shall stand before God and before the priests and the judges, which shall be in those days. And when you read further, if you bear a false witness against somebody, the judgment was whatever you tried to falsely accuse that person of, you were supposed to receive the judgment for that law. Okay? That's very important. And the reason why that is he tells you at the end, verse 19, then you shall do unto him as he had thought to have done unto his brother. So shall thou put evil away from among you. See, a lot of the times you'll read this last line here at the end of the commandments about a harsh judgment. The Most High does this for this very reason, to put evil away from us, because human beings, we have a tendency to think we can get away with stuff if there's no consequences. All right, it tells you that in Ecclesiastes 8 and 11. Whenever you don't have severe consequences for actions, you think you can continuously get away with it. We as humans, that's part of our nature. So the Most High puts these judgments here, and he lets you know this line at the end to put away that evil, to put away those grievous acts, okay? But like I said, we went over that. That was my mistake. We are actually starting off in chapter 20 today. All right. So, Deuteronomy chapter 20. Brother Carter, if you could read from verse 1 through verse 4.
See if I can see it. When thou goest out to battle against thine enemies, and seest horses and chariots and a people more than thou, be not afraid of them, for the Lord thy God is with thee, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And it shall be, when ye are come nigh unto the battle, that the priest shall approach and speak unto the people, and shall say unto them, Hear, O Israel, ye approach this day unto battle against your enemies. Let not your hearts faint, fear not, and do not tremble, neither be ye terrified because of them. For the Lord your God is he that goes with you, to fight for you against your enemies, to save you.
Okay, now, how relevant do we think this is to us today? Okay. Very relevant. Right? Why do you say very relevant?
I mean, because it's, as you would say, applicable. It matters.
Right. No, every one of these matter.
Well, yeah.
When I say applicable, I just mean like in terms of us carrying this out today. Right. Now, this could be more applicable than it is to us. But many of us, I mean, you don't have an army unless you have a nation. The children of Israel do not have an established nation that has its constitution in the laws of the Most High. Okay. In other words, if we were to go out to battle, who's the captain? Who's taking rank, right? Who is making sure the soldiers are in uniform? Who does that, right? So we don't necessarily have this, but it is important, okay? Because it's giving you a frame of reference. When we did have our own country, when we did have our own nation, we had to trust in the Most High to lead us in battle, okay? We could not just go out and fight on our own. As a matter of fact, there's plenty of times in the Bible where we tried to fight on our own, or with the Most High not being with us, and guess what would happen? We lose every single time. This is letting you know that when he says, Yah, your Elohim, or your God, or your power, because that's what the word means, it actually means that he is your power. Without him, you have no power. So these other nations who you're going up against, they have powers that are more powerful than you. So without God on your side, or without the Most High on your side, you're not going to win. You're not. So this is, again, why we have to return to all of these commandments and know them, so that he will be on our side, especially when the time comes that he's going to be on our side.
Can we apply this in a personal sense?
Go ahead.
Without the nation part?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, in a personal sense, I'm asking this scripture, or this set of scriptures, him speaking to Israel as a nation, but to apply it in understanding to our lives personally as we approach enemies.
Not this. You can apply other verses, like, for example, you can apply, what is that? Galatians chapter 6, where it talks about putting on, Ephesians chapter 6, where it talks about putting on the whole armor of God. Because we have battles with our enemies spiritually every day.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly. I know exactly what you're saying. This more so is talking about us as a unit, right? Because what we're going to read into further is going to let me back on this. But there's other verses that you can go to, because I would never go to this for that subject. I would go to other verses that talks about how the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but spiritual, okay? I would go to verses like that, because those talk about the spiritual battles that take place in our personal lives every single day. And the enemies that we have, usually, they manifest physically, but there's always a spirit behind that person that's leading them to do whatever it is that they're doing, okay? As a matter of fact, to touch on that right quick, a lot of times we have issues with our people, okay? Many of us. I'm talking about our people in the truth. We'll have debates or arguments or whatever the case may be. And sometimes it's not the person who you're actually talking to. It's the spirit on that person that's trying to sow dissension, sow discord among the body, or among that relationship between those two individuals. Whereas God has brought you together, an evil spirit is trying to entice and is using a brother or sister in that moment to separate this that God has brought in unison, okay? So in that aspect, yes, but I wouldn't use this verse or this passage to make that point, you know. There's many other verses that talk about that's more hitting that point like a nail on the head. So that's what I want to bring up for this. We can move on to verse 5, because verse 5 is where it gets to it. We can go to verse 7, 5 through 7.
And the officers shall speak unto the people, saying, what man is there that has built a new house and has not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle and another man dedicate it. And what man is he that has planted a vineyard and has not yet eaten of it? Let him also go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle and another man eat of it. And what man is there that has betrothed a wife and has not taken her? Let him go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle and another man take her.
So now these three are the legitimate reasons for you to be excluded from going out to war. And when I say going out to war, I'm talking about an actual physical war. These three things. If you had just built a house, because most of the time you're building a house for the sake of getting married. This is what men would do in Hebraic culture. You couldn't get married without having a place for the woman to go before that occurred. So usually when they're building a house, it's in preparation for them finding a wife thereafter, or they already have a wife who is betrothed to them thereafter. Planting a vineyard, same thing. You had just planted a vineyard. This was an excusable reason for you not to go out to war, especially if you were eligible. Okay, but these are just the 3 reasons that would prevent a man from going out to war. All right, and then you have the last one in verse 8. Those were 3 legitimate reasons, but then there's a 4th reason. Verse 8 and 9.
And the officers shall speak further unto the people, and they shall say, What man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return unto his house, lest his brethren's heart faint as well as his heart. And it shall be, when the officers have made an end of speaking unto the people, that they shall make captains of the armies to lead the people.
Right. So this is where the application comes in. Like, this is something that we don't have in place. It's something that we could have in place, we just don't. All right. But this last one here, it says, whosoever is fearful and faint-hearted. A lot of times, war is not an easy thing to mentally take in. And so this is something that when actually getting to that point of being about to go to battle, a lot of people will, have that fear set in on them that'll cause them to take away from the cohesion of the rest of the military. All right, so if we have this, so these are the 4 reasons that would prevent a man, an eligible man, from going out to war. All right, any questions or comments on this? Because we're about to change the subject. Okay, so we're going to verse 10 through 15.
Now comest near unto a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. And it shall be, if it make thee answer of peace, and open unto thee, then it shall be that all the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto thee, and they shall serve thee. And it will make no peace with thee, but will make war against thee. Then thou shalt besiege it. And when the Lord thy God has delivered it into thine hands, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword. But the women and the little ones and the cattle and all that is in the city, even all the spoil thereof, shalt thou take unto thyself. And thou shalt eat the spoil of thine enemies, which the Lord thy God has given thee. Thus shalt thou do unto all the cities which are very far off from thee, which are not of the cities of these nations.
Okay, so in verse 10, it gives you the standard to which we went out to battle. Before, it said we had to proclaim peace first. Okay, this is something that a lot of people miss. Many people think that we're just going out and just slaughtering people just left and right because we're just barbaric and we're savages, right? In the scriptures, whenever we went out to war, especially when we're on the offensive, we proclaim peace to that nation first. And what is peace? Peace is saying, look, we're going to be the dominant nation, you're going to serve us, and you can just yield, or we can go to war and we can just take it from you. That's what peace is. Is that clear for verse 10? Mm-hmm. Okay. How do we know that this is the case? Because when it goes further and it says, if it may be answer of peace and open unto thee, then it shall be that all the people shall be tributaries. Tributaries is people who pay you taxes. Okay? Just like us right now. We work hard, we work long hours. We pay taxes to who? The American government. A government that doesn't really serve us well. That money is then used to progress this nation, this kingdom. Well, when you go out and you make other people tributaries to you, you siphon their resources to make your country better. Okay? It says that they shall serve. In verse 12, it says, but it will make no peace with thee, it will make war against thee, then you shall besiege it. Okay? Besieging is very specific. Besieging is when you surround an area, you make it to where nobody can get in, nobody can get out. Okay? And you, in essence, starve people. In verse 13, it goes on to say, when Yah thy Elohim hath delivered them into thy hand, and you shall smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword. Okay? Why is this important again? There's many times in the Bible where you'll read where this stuff does not happen, and you'll see people being disobedient to what God has said. Alright? It says you shall smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword. And why are you smiting the males? As we know, it's obviously going to be the men who defend the nation. You do that because if you're trying to overcome your adversary, you want to take them out. This is exactly what they have done to you. okay? In every way. It don't matter what generation of Israelites have been on this earth, our enemies have tried to take out our children, specifically the males. It don't matter if you want to bring up Exodus, in the book of Exodus chapter 1 with Pharaoh. You could bring up in the Maccabees when they did it, trying to look for all the people who were circumcised. They would actually look for Israelite men who were circumcised, young boys, and they'd kill them. It don't matter if you're talking about Christ, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about it right now, okay? Whether your sons, especially, are alive or if they're in the womb, they're being attacked. You understand? So in the same way we see that the Most High telling us when he's on our side, we can execute this effectively, the same way your enemies know that they can effectively do this against you. Okay? Let's see. Do we have any questions or comments about this? All right, so let's move on. We can go to verse 16 through 18 now.
But of the cities of these people which the Lord thy God does give thee for an inheritance, thou shalt save alive nothing that breathes. But thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy God has commanded thee, that they teach you not to do after all their abominations, which they have done unto their gods. So should ye sin against the Lord your God.
So now I'm going to ask you guys this. What is the contrast between verse 16 through 18 to what we just read previously? There's a specific contrast. So let's look up a little bit. Remember, it said that you could take the people whenever you go out to war against them. It says you should smite the males thereof with the edge of the sword. But the women and the little ones and the cattle and all that are in the city, even all the spoil thereof, you shall take unto yourselves. Okay? So in other words, when you go out to these people who are not Canaanites and you make war with these people who are not Canaanites, you can take the spoil. But when it comes to these Canaanites, okay, who you are about to encounter, he said, you shall save alive nothing that breatheth. This is the contrast.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, like, it's little stuff like this, again, it's little stuff like this. When you're reading in the Bible, you miss this. This is the very reason why Saul got removed from being king. This is the very reason. Because he applied verse 13 here, where he tried to take the spoil, okay? Whereas God told him to destroy everything, leave nothing that breathes. And he did what? He did this. So just that miss, and I'm not saying that he did that because he missed this, but I'm saying, let's say that you were in Saul's place, and you missed this commandment. You missed the distinction between this commandment and that commandment. Just like that, the Most High is done with you forever. It don't matter if you cry and you repent and you get on your knees and you try to grab onto Samuel's cloak and you beg and plead. Once he's done with you, he's done. Over a small detail like this. Okay? So this is exactly what Saul did.
Is there a why to the contrast?
Yes, there is. It states it right here. It says, but thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites, these are Canaanites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites are Canaanites. All these people are Canaanites, basically. Right. That they teach you not to do after their abominations. Okay? This is the reason. That they teach you not to do after their abominations. How do we know that this is the case? If we go back to Leviticus 18, just to show you this as an example, I'm going to show you that the Most High gave us commandments based off of the people who we were around. Look at this in Leviticus chapter 18. I'm going to read verse 1 through 3. All right? It says, this is Leviticus again, chapter 18, and I'm going to read verse 1 through 3. It says, and Yah spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, I am Yah, your Elohim. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dwelt, shall you not do. And after the doings of the land of Canaan, whether I bring you, shall you not do. Neither shall you walk in their ordinances. This whole chapter is giving you what they did. So the bestiality, the homosexuality, the pedophilia, the incest, these are all things that you can find in Canaanite and Egyptian culture. You can actually find this today, okay? So when we were in Egypt, we saw this stuff firsthand. We saw the Egyptians doing it. when we got into the land of Canaan, we saw the Canaanites doing these same things. Okay? We know that Sodom and Gomorrah, what nation of people inhabited that area? It was Canaanites. Did we take after their ways? Absolutely. How did we take after their ways? Remember the Benjamites? When they found that man that was a wayfaring man, what did they want to do? They said, take that man out that we may know him. This is the same thing that the Canaanites did in Genesis chapter 19. This is why I'm saying these little details, it really brings all of the scriptures together so that you can get a better understanding of the things that we've already read most of the time. Okay? So this whole chapter, right, all the fornication laws, all that is because we were in Egypt and we saw those things and we were going to be in Canaan seeing the same stuff. Okay, so this is the reason that you, again, do not after their works. What is that right here? That they teach you not to do after their works. Okay? Which they have done unto their gods. So shall you sin against Yah, your Elohim. Okay? Sorry. And it goes beyond that, all right? They also sacrifice their children. They engaged in different types of revelry to their gods, etc. It's all the same. 19 and 20 is the last one. Oh, do we have any other questions about that?
Lord, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. 19 and 20.
And thou shalt besiege the city a long time, and making war against it to take it. Thou shalt not destroy the trees thereof by forcing an axe against them. For thou mayest eat of them, thou shalt not cut them down, for the tree of the field is man's life, to employ them in the siege. Only the trees which thou knowest that they be not trees for meat, thou shalt destroy and cut them down, and thou shalt build bulwarks against the city that makes war with thee until it be subdued.
Okay. So, notice how there is mercy in the Most High sending us out to war against a nation. He's telling you that the trees that are for food, once you besiege a city, you can leave those trees for that people. Okay? In other words, just like how today we have there's things called war crimes. Like even if you're in war, there's certain things that you can't do, right? Technically, even though some people still do. This is kind of like one of those things. Okay? And then what he's telling you is when you besiege a city, again, a besieging is when you surround a city, all right, and you make it to where nobody can get in and nobody can get out. Okay? So when you besiege it, he says to use trees that are not trees for meat. All right. Again, might not be as applicable, but the point is, it's here in the commandments for us to know, and therefore we should know it. All right. The next chapter will be a little bit more applicable than the chapter after that, especially 22. But any questions or comments about this before we move on? All right. So now we're going to Deuteronomy 21. Brother Rob, if you could take this one for me. You could start at verse 1, and you can read until, I think it's verse 5, where it stops.
Deuteronomy
1 through 9, sorry.
1 through 9.
Yeah.
Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 1. If one be found slain in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, to possess it, lying in the field, and it be not known who has slain him, then thy elders and thy judges shall come forth, and they shall measure unto the cities which are round about him that is slain. And it shall be that the city which is next unto the slain man, even the elders of the city, shall take an heifer, which had not been wrought with, and which had not drawn in the yoke. And the elders of the city shall bring down the heifer into the rough valley, which neither ear nor song, and shall strike off the heifer's neck there in the valley. And the priests, the sons of the Levites, shall come near. For them the Lord thy God had chosen to minister unto him, and to bless in the name of the Lord. And by their words shall every controversy and every stroke be tried. And all elders of that city that are next unto that slain man shall wash their hands over the heifer that is beheaded in the valley, And they shall answer and say, Our hands have not shed this blood, neither have our eyes seen it. Be merciful, O Lord, unto thy people Israel, whom thou hast redeemed, and lay not innocent blood unto thy people Israel's charge, and the blood shall be forgiven them. So shalt thou put away the guilt of innocent blood from among you, when thou shalt do that which is right in the sight of the Lord.
All right, so we ended off by saying here, so now we do that which is right in the sight of Yahweh. What are we taking from this commandment, right? Because this is really one law, it's got 9 verses, but it's really one commandment. What are we getting from this? What are we getting from this law? Any points? Okay, first off, all of y'all want to dwell with the Most High, right? That's what we would say. We all want to be in His presence. But there are certain things that the Most High will not allow to be in His presence. Otherwise, He will remove Himself. Okay? One of those things is innocent blood being shed. What do we know about innocent blood? What happens when an innocent person is killed? You think you want to get away with that? Would you say, Sister Morales?
The blood cries out.
Exactly. Exactly. And who's the blood crying out to?
Most High.
And what is the Most High going to do about that?
Judgment.
There we go. So right here, this law tells you exactly why what we just read is so important. It stated that if there's a man who is found dead in the field and you don't know who did it, and the idea is you can't hold anybody accountable for it, because when you shed innocent blood, your blood is supposed to be shed, right? But the idea is we don't know who shed it. But somebody has to account, something has to account for this innocent blood. God will not just let it go. He won't. He can't. It's not in Him to do that. So He puts these laws in place for us. It says here in Numbers 35 and verse 33, so ye shall not pollute the land wherein you are. When He gave us that land, that's His land. It's not our land. He gave it to our fathers, but that's still His land. We pollute the land by committing abominations in it, by committing sins in it, and like we're reading here, by shedding innocent blood in it. You pollute it, okay? So it says, you should not defile the land wherein you are, for blood is defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of Him that shed. He's telling you it cannot be cleansed, but by the blood of Him that shed it. But in this law, the idea again is we don't know who did it. Okay? This is why the elders are having to come in and they're having to bring a heifer, because they're saying if we knew who it was, we'd hold them accountable. But since we don't know, we're going to use this heifer, and we're going to let this heifer cleanse the blood in place of that perpetrator. Okay? Defile not therefore the land which you shall inhabit, wherein I dwell. Okay, this is key. Wherein I dwell. This is the Most High dwelling here. It says, for I, Yah, dwell among the children of Israel. So because He dwells among us, we cannot do said things as we just read here. So in the event that that happens, you have a clause of how you can fix that situation. Okay? And that is this law right here. Is that clear? Any questions or comments about that? All right. So we can move on to verse 10 through 14.
Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 10. When thou goest forth to war against thy enemies, and the Lord thy God hath delivered them in thy hands, and thou hast taken them captive, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and has a desire to her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife, then thou shalt bring her home to thy house, and she shall shave her head, and par her nails, and she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in thy house. and beware her father and her mother a full month. And after that thou shalt go in unto her, and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. And it shall be, if thou have no delight in her, then thou shalt let her go whither she will. But thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not make merchandise of her, because thou hast humbled her. If a man have two,
That's it. That's it. So, right here, okay, this law is very important when it comes to a specific doctrine that we have in our community, which is the doctrine of us marrying outside of Israelites, okay? We know that the scriptures in many places forbid the idea of Israelite men and women marrying outside of their race. All right, we do know that, right? Or do we need to go over that? Let's just bring this up right quick, just so that we can make this clear. In this same book, in Deuteronomy chapter 7, we have this law here, where it says, verse 1 through 4, when Yah your Elohim shall bring you into the land when you go to possess it, and has cast out many nations from before thee, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. When Yah thy Elohim hath delivered them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of Yah be kindled against you and destroy you suddenly. This law is clearly telling you that you are not supposed to marry heathens, specifically these Canaanites, but brought it in a broader sense to heathens in general, because they serve other gods. Okay? That's what this law is telling you. Because this law is telling you this, in Deuteronomy 21, it seems as though it's a contradiction.
Absolutely.
All right? That's the point. That's why I'm bringing this up. This law has been read and interpreted to mean exactly what it says, that we're not to marry heathens outside of our race. Now, when you get to Deuteronomy 21, the idea here is this. Where's my lesson? Go back. Remember, in chapter 20, what did we read about when we going out to war? Okay? So you gotta bring all these things into play. When you go out to war, if you're going out to war against non-Canaanites, he said what? You smite the males, but you can keep spoil of everything else. Okay? You have many times in the Bible where the children of Israel will go against people who were not Canaanites. They would smite the men and they would keep the spoil of that nation. Okay? Because there is no threat to them in terms of serving other gods. So here, when it says, when you go forth to war against your enemies, and Yah your Elohim delivered them into thy hands, and thou hast taken them captive. If you've taken somebody captive, these are not the people who God has told us wipe out utterly. Because if you wipe them out utterly, there will not be any captives. Okay? So this is letting you know that this is spoil. You can, in fact, take spoil here, but in a general sense, in a more vague sense, you can't take a heathen unless you've taken them in battle. All right, so that's what this clause is telling you. It's not really a contradiction because the circumstances are different. In Deuteronomy 7, the circumstances, this is another nation. They're allowed to serve their gods because you don't have control over them. In this context, you have already destroyed this nation. If you destroy them, that means you destroy their gods. And that means that all your captives are now subject to you and they have to worship under your system of belief. That's the difference. Is that clear? Do you have any questions or comments about that? Any questions or comments about that? Need to see an example? All right. If not, you can move forward. We're going to verse 15 through 17.
Deuteronomy 21, verse 15. If a man have two wives, one beloved and another hated, and they have borne him children, both the beloved and the hated. And if the firstborn son be hers that was hated, then it shall be, when he maketh his sons to inherit that which he had, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn. Who's stopping that?
17.
But he shall not the son of the hated for the firstborn, by giving him a double portion of all that he had, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his.
All right. So now 2 things we need to pay attention to in this law right here. One, the culture of the children of Israel. Many of them they engaged in the practice known as polygyny, which is a man having more than one wife. The second and most important one is in Hebrew culture, when you had sons, your firstborn son received a double portion. In other words, if you had 5 sons, when you made your inheritance, you would have to split the inheritance 6 ways. So if you have 5 sons, you split it 6 ways. If you have 6 sons, how many ways do you split it? 7 ways, right? Because your firstborn, he gets 2, okay? A double portion. Now, what this law is basically telling you is you cannot show favoritism in the case of your sons based off of the relationship of your wives. If you only have one wife, this is not an issue. But if you have more than one, this is where that can become an issue. This actually happens multiple times in the Bible. Can anybody think of any of these examples? Any example where this occurred? So I'll give you one. Anybody say something? Okay, I'll give you one. The example, Joseph. Okay, Joseph. Joseph actually did get a double portion. Okay, how do we know this? If you look at a 12 tribes, or for example, if you read in Revelation 7, and it's breaking down the tribes, notice who's there. They don't say Joseph. They'll say Ephraim and Manasseh. Okay, Ephraim and Manasseh actually are their own tribes, but both of them come from Joseph. Okay, why is that? Because Joseph received a double portion. Now you may be asking, well, Joseph wasn't the firstborn son. Reuben was the firstborn son. So why is it that Reuben didn't get a double portion and 2 of his sons become tribes, and Joseph did get the double portion and 2 of his sons became tribes? The answer to that is found in 1 Chronicles chapter 5. Okay. Just so I can show you this right quick. It says right here, in 1 Chronicles chapter 5 again, the culture of the children of Israel. And again, this is our culture, so this is something that you have to do. This is a law. So if you have sons, your firstborn son, when you make an inheritance, all your sons are supposed to have an equal inheritance, except the firstborn. The firstborn gets a double, all right? It says, now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, for he was the firstborn, but for as much as he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given unto who? Sons of Joseph, the son of Israel. And the genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright. So they answer this question for his case. You have multiple cases in the Bible like this, okay? Solomon is another example. We're not going to go to it, but we know that King Solomon was not King David's firstborn son. So he should not have gotten the kingdom. But he did end up getting the kingdom, okay? So I think that's pretty simple to understand. Do we have any questions or comments about that? All right. Moving on to verse 18 through 21.
Verse 18. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father, or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him, will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him, and bring him out unto the elders of the city, and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of his city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So shall thou put up evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear.
There goes that phrase again, right? Remember I told you this is going to appear many times in the Bible. So all Israel shall hear and fear, and so that you put away the evil from among you. Okay? Now, let's really look at this all right quick. First of all, before I start talking, do we have any questions or comments about this? I need to make sure that we're engaged in what this is actually saying. So what are we picking up from verse 18 through 21? What are we picking up from this? Do we know what this, are we understanding what this means? Any clarity? No? Okay. So again, this law is basically telling you that if you have a child that is stubborn and rebellious, it's point blank and simply, you can kill him. It's telling you right there, because if you were disobedient to, this is what it means when the Most High tells you to honor your father and your mother. This is not something to play with. So if you didn't do it, it's grounds for capital punishment. Okay? Now, most people probably did not execute this. The point is, though, it's here to let you know that there is no reason why the children of Israel, upon the first generation receiving the commandments, there's no reason why we should be away from the Most High in terms of our obedience. In other words, if you have a righteous man and he's obedient and he has children, his children either follow the Most High or he does away with them. And his children, when they become adults and they have children, either he gets his children to follow the Most High or do away with him. That's what this law is telling you. And the Most High just said, the reason you do this is to put away the evil from among you. What happened? The men were not obedient to the Most High themselves. Their children wasn't obedient to the Most High. And now their children don't even know who the Most High is. And this is how we get to where we get to today. So you might look at this and say, well, this is kind of cruel or whatever. Many people say this, but the point is the same. And as a matter of fact, our Messiah brings this up in the book of Mark chapter 7. So if Christ had enough wealth, let's go real quick. Let's go and read that right quick. Mark 7. Let's read this right quick. In verse 6. Look what Christ says. And this is in red letter. Although it's not here. In your Bible, you can see that this is in red letter. He, Christ, answered and said unto them, well as Isaiah prophesied of you hypocrites. He called the Pharisees hypocrites. We have to ask ourselves, are we hypocrites? As it is written, this people honors me with their lips. We honor God with our lips. Many of us. But their heart is far from me. You have to ask yourself, is your heart far from God when you read his commandments? Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For lying aside the commandment of God, lying aside the commandment of God, you hold the tradition of men as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things ye do.
Giddy up.
He said unto them, here's the point, verse 9. Full well you reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your own tradition. Look what he says. For Moses said, we just read it, honor your father and your mother, and whoso curseth his father or his mother, let him die the death. But you say something different. We just read that if you have a stubborn and rebellious son who will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, he's a glutton, he's a drunkard, he don't do this, he don't do that. You bring this man, it says you take him, you bring him to the elders and you tell him, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He won't obey his mother, he won't obey me. All the other kids are going to see this kid who is disobedient to their parents, and they won't do it. Well, what happens to our children now? They go to school, they see the bad kids in abundance, doing what they want to do, and then your kid who you're trying to pour out the spirit of the Most High on is being influenced by the wicked children who are manifesting in this society. It's the same thing, it's just flipped. The same way you put evil away from among you is the same way the wicked are manifesting evil in the society at a rapid pace. They're just applying these same principles just on their end. But ye say, if a man shall say to his father or his mother, it is Corbin, that is to say, a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, he shall be free. In other words, these parents, they went and read Deuteronomy 21 and 18, and they said, look, we bringing you to the judges. And they went and brought their child to the judges, and the judges spoke to the child, got a gift, and said, you all right, it's okay. That's okay even though you were disobedient to your parents. Why else would Christ be saying this if it wasn't happening? The point is, it was happening right here. Here's the Bible, again, something that I'm sure we've read in the past before. And you see the commandments that many people will overlook being played out right here. And you suffer him no more to do aught for his father or his mother, making the word of God of none effect through your tradition. No? All right. Last two verses. And then we will read one more chapter and that's it for today.
Verse 22. And if a man have committed a sin worthy of death, and he be put to death, and thou hang him on a tree, his body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any wise bury him that day. For he that is hanged is a curse of God, that thy land be not defiled, which thy Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance.
Now you see this? I'm sure we can think of an example where this is applicable, right? When they hung Christ, what happened? What did the centurion say? At even, he went and wanted to take the body of Christ down before that day was over. Okay? Why? Because he that is hanged is a curse of God. So, this is what I'm saying again. This point is just going to keep on reiterating. These laws and commandments, this is showing you the reason why stuff is happening throughout the Bible that you can read about situationally. All right? Any questions or comments about anything in this verse or in this chapter completely? Anything we missed? All right, so Deuteronomy chapter 22 is the last chapter that we're going over today. It's the last chapter that we're going over today. And that'll be it. Most of these commandments are, like I mentioned before, most of these are actually a little bit more applicable to us today. Okay? So right here, so something else, I'll read this last one. Make sure we don't have any comments first. All right, we're good. Deuteronomy 22, verse 1 to 3. What it says here, it says, thou shalt not see thy brother's ox or his sheep go astray, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt in any case bring them again unto thy brother. Okay? And if thy brother be not nigh unto thee, or if thou know him not, then thou shalt bring it unto thine own house, and it shall be with thee until thy brother seek after it, and thou shalt restore it to him again. In like manner shalt thou do with his ass, and so shalt thou do with his raiment, and with all lost thing of thy brothers, which he has lost, and thou hast found, so shalt thou do likewise, thou mayest not hide thyself. Okay? Now, what this law is actually communicating, this is one of the spiritual aspects of the law. This is loving your neighbor as yourself. I'm sure every one of you has lost something valuable before. When you went to go look for it, you knew you sat it someplace, or you knew you left it somewhere, and it wasn't there anymore. All right? And you would have wished that either people would have just left it where it was, or that somebody took it and saved it for you to get. This is the point. You would want somebody to do that for you, In like manner, you should do that for your brothers, your sisters, etc. I think it's pretty simple. Any questions or comments on that? All right. Verse 4. Thou shalt not see thy brother's ass or his ox fall down by the way, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt surely help him to lift them up again. Now, see this verse right here? You wouldn't know it, but when Christ said to love your enemies, this is what he's talking about right here. This is actually a repetition of another law in Exodus where it said, if you see your enemy's ox or his ass fall down. Let me show you that right quick, so you can see that. We know Christ said love your enemies. We know that. But who is this enemy talking about? That's the question. All right. So, where is this verse here? Let me see. Is it in the next chapter? Might be in the next chapter. Here we go, right here. So Deuteronomy 22 and 4 is the same verse as Exodus 23 and 4. But one says your brother, and this verse says your enemy. Right? So let's just look at that again. Let's put these up side by side, actually. Let's go to Deuteronomy, back to 22. We go look at this verse, all right? We go look at verse 4. Look what verse 4 says. Thou shalt not see thy brother's ass or his ox fallen down by the way, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt surely help him to lift them up again. Right here, Exodus 23 and 4 says, if thou meet thine enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him. If thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lying under his burden, and wouldest forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help him. Again, the point here is when Christ said to love your enemies, all right, this is what he is actually referring to. Because as I've mentioned multiple times, Christ did not give us new commandments, okay? Many people think that Christ gave us harder laws or laws that are somehow not found in the Torah already. Everything that Christ said can be found right here. Everything. Everything that he said. When he says, you have heard that has been said unto you, but I tell you, what he's saying that I tell you can be found in here. All of it. That's the point. So when he says, do good to them that despitefully use you, bless them that curse you, this is that. You're doing good to your brother who is really your enemy, according to the last verse. You're doing good because you're getting his things and you're bringing them things back to him again. This is how you quench the coals of the indignation between brothers and brothers. A lot of brothers have these issues with each other. They hate each other for the most part. They don't go around each other. They're so angry they can't be around each other. And Christ is telling you that these commandments, what we just read in Exodus 23 and Deuteronomy 22, these laws are designed to attack you in the spirit. Your spirit should be emanating the fruit of the spirit, which is love, and you're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself according to the second greatest commandment. How do you do that if you hate this man? Right here, he's giving you an example. Any questions on that? All right, so that's verse 4. Any questions or comments on that? All right, verse 5. The woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are an abomination unto Yah, your Elohim. All right, so right here, this is a verse that people interpret as saying that men cannot wear dresses and women cannot wear pants.
Wow.
All right, this is what people interpret from this verse. I will tell you that is not a correct interpretation. I do want to let you know that because in the Bible, men wore skirts, okay, all of the time. It's what we would know as shorts today. Like I got shorts on under these jeans. They didn't have shorts then. the difference between shorts and a skirt that men would wear is that you have the crease, all right, that separates your two legs. Whereas the skirt, it was just around. Just put your feet in it. That's what it was. All right. You also have what they make today as jeans. They make jeans for men. They subsequently make jeans for women. Now we know that during the 60s, during the rise of the feminist movement, they did encourage women to start wearing pants at that time. But that's not what this verse is talking about. That's what is causing people to come up with the interpretation of this verse. But at the same time, there's many arguments against that. All right, so I just want to point this out. Really, what this is talking about is war garments. When you look behind the garment here, it's talking about garments. When you look up this word, it's talking about garments that you would use to go forth to battle and things like that. So like your sleeves, some of the things that brothers try to put on to make themselves look like they're actually going out to battle when they're actually not. But the breastplate, stuff like that. Women do not wear that because we didn't allow women to go to war in the children of Israel's army. Okay.
How do we know that?
How do we know that?
That that's speaking to war.
Oh, can you just look it up? So we're gonna use our tools, Paul. All right. Right here we have the Hebrew. All right. Shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man. Neither shall a man put on a woman's garment. Let me see. Where is that? Is it this one? What's it pertaining? That's an instrument right here. So the things that pertain unto a man. What pertains to a man? It says here vessel, instruments, talking about instrument of war, weapon, jewel, arm bearer, stuff, thing, armor, furniture, carriage, talking about the carriages that people would use to ride on the back of horses with. All right, it says right here, article, vessel, implement, utensil. Utensil for what? It says utensil, implement of hunting or war, etc. We also know that this word could be used for instruments, but an actual instrument, like a horn or something. But we know that that's not what it's talking about in this context, because this context is talking about clothes. Okay? All right, right here it says woman's garment. You look at this word. All right, it says raiment, clothes, garment, etc. So you see how they don't put this word for men's clothing. It just says that which pertain to a man. Right? This is the men's garment. That's talking about things that you use to wear for war specifically. All right, so it's this word right here. H3627 for your references. You can look at this and you can see right here. This is the definition of this word. Oh, right here. Something to prepare, i.e. apparatus, implement, dress, vessel, weapon, arm bearer, artillery, bag, carriage, furniture. All of these things are utilized by soldiers.
And kali is for garment.
Which one?
The word you just went to. That's for garment or pertaining.
Yes. But if you look at it right
Which
here,
one did you look for just now?
watch this. Garment. Notice it says feminine noun. Okay.
So sin-law is the garment.
So again, many people interpret this law differently, but ultimately the point is still the same.
So can I conclude, women shall not wear war clothing, but men shouldn't put on dresses. It still say that. Garment-wise, that's still speaking to clothing.
Correct. Now, but again, you have to make sure that we're understanding what that means. If you have a man who's wearing a cloak will go down to your ankles. To a regular person who doesn't know anything about the commandments, that looks like a dress. Okay? Or it says that Christ, when describing him in Revelation chapter 3, it said he had a long garment on down to the foot. Okay? That looks like a dress. That's why I'm bringing up the whole point about dresses and skirts. This is what traditionally modest women who are in the church, they wear this. But if you have a man who walks around with a long garment down to the foot and a little belt strap, right? Like an old timey look like that, this verse will be confusing if you have that understanding. And that's because that's not the correct understanding. The correct understanding is based on what the clothes, who's making clothes and who they're making it for.
But we know the difference between a robe and a dress.
No, that's not a robe.
I mean, it's a robe appears as one.
A robe has a cut, like
An
an
opening down
Right.
there, yeah.
This garment down to the foot that the children of Israel wear, this is like a shirt that just went like you see how this shirt stop here? They should just stop all the way down. Okay, that's what that is. The priest wore a robe like that you put on and then you close. And you'll wrap some around or whatever. Alright, but again, that's a modern day understanding. See, what we're doing is we take ourselves in this modern day and age and say, well, okay, what do men traditionally wear in this society, in this culture? Whereas when you read the Bible, most of the time, men wore skirts and long garments down to the foot. So we can see that there's a clear difference.
Wow, only argument would be to someone, a man that's wearing a dress and he's not going to war.
Say that again?
Our only argument for him not wearing a dress would be because he's going to war.
Wait, you're saying that the reason why the man wouldn't wear a dress is because he's going to war?
Today.
I don't understand.
Because men are wearing dresses today.
No.
In
No,
the
no.
femininity sense,
Yeah,
dressing like a woman today.
in the feminine sense, yes, that is going to get, that's what I'm saying. This law is applied to who's making the clothes and who they're making it for. You're wearing a dress with the implication of you looking feminine, okay? That is going against this law right here. Because you're literally putting on a woman's garment. This garment was designed, it was made by women, most likely for women, okay? That's going against this. When you're talking about women, and most of the time, when it's talking about war clothes here, it's because everybody just wore that as a walking around thing. Okay, but if we want to go to today's, speaking for today, even if you wear clothes that are specifically for men, if you wear men's clothes or men's trousers, whatever the case is, that's still going against this law. So if you go into the men's section, there's clothes for men. You pick those up as a woman, you put that on, yes, that is in fact going against this law.
But clothes made for women,
Right. What about it?
with pants made for women.
Pants made for women technically is not going against this law. All right. However, where we get into the dresses and the modesty aspect is when you get to 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 9. This is where you can make a case against that because pants are not designed to be modest. They're designed to show sex appeal. That's the point. So this is what I'm saying. That's 1 Timothy 2 and verse 9. You can also precept that with Ecclesiasticus chapter 26, and I think it was verse 13. So, in other words, you don't need to use this law to make it like it's saying something that it's not saying for you to make a point that women should wear dresses. You don't need to do this. It's just like the question you asked me about earlier with the battling. You don't need to use Deuteronomy 20, verse 1 through 4 to reference internal battles that you have with yourself. There are scriptures that talk about that, all right? You don't need to use this verse if you wanted to suggest that sisters should wear dresses. You can make the case that any type of pants or tights or whatever the case is not modest. And that can be found in other verses. So I'm not saying that that's wrong. That is the right thing, I believe. And we can actually read that in the scriptures. I'm just saying that you don't have to use this verse to make that point. Okay. Any questions or comments about that? Do we need to see those verses?
Yes, I'd like to go there.
No problem, bro. No problem.
Yeah, you said 1 Timothy 2 and 9, what was the other?
I'm going to. This is 1 Timothy. All right. Chapter 2. It says here. Right here. 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 9. In like manner also, that women adorn themselves in modest apparel. What is modest apparel? Okay. Modest apparel, when defined, is anything that is not showing sex appeal. What is sex appeal? Sex appeal is things that are designed to cause men to draw to you based off of that, i.e. butt showing, breast showing, stomach showing, whatever the case may be, okay? With shamefacedness. What is shamefacedness? Shamefacedness is literally looking down. If you go to certain countries and you look at how the women conduct themselves, they will not look at you in the face, okay? Especially as a man, they will not look at you in the face. That is a culture that the children of Israel had as well. When you actually look at the children of Israel's culture, the same thing that you see that's occurring in the Middle East and in North Africa, where you go to these places and women won't look at you, that's because they're taught in their culture to be shamefaced. All right, and some of them even go as far as to cover their entire woman's face because a man can be allured by the beauty of a woman just in her face. Okay? So the point is, what is modest apparel? Modest apparel, defined, is lacking sex appeal. That's the point. It says, in sobriety, not with voided hair, gold, pearls, or costly red, but which becometh women professing godliness with good works. Okay? Now there's that verse. So I think that's pretty clear. Most of us know about this verse.
So, they don't have a verse about a man dressing modest.
No.
So a man can wear pants as tight as possible in a crotch.
Well,
And
Okay.
to a woman, that's sex appeal. To some.
right.
So,
No, that's a legit question.
I mean,
And muscle shirts.
yeah, muscle shirts, you know, back in the day, they used to wear the shirts that snapped between the legs.
It's not between the ladies.
Yeah, the dudes used to wear the tight shirts back in the day.
A
I don't
what?
know the name of them, Colonel.
I don't know what you're talking about. That sound like a onesie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He said
Something like that.
I don't know about that.
They keep their shirts tight in their pants to grip their muscles. We used to call them muscle pumps back in the days. You know, muscle pumps. So they would wear that, and they would have these super tight jeans on, Russells or whatever, and the crotch would be super tight. So I'm like, to me, that's you dancing in the same area right there.
Okay, so
Would
that's
that
a
be
good
more
point.
feminine?
Because right now they
Yeah,
wear men and women wear about the same tightness of pants. Them youngsters wear, they get the dryer literally arguing about who the pants is for, but they don't know who they for. They that tight.
It's still saying.
And still sagging under the butt, you know. When we came over, we had a list sag. They're under the buttocks now. Super tight, can't pull them up. So I mean,
Okay, I thought you were.
that was a statement and a question at the same time,
Okay.
I guess.
I see what you're saying. No, first off, that's a good question, right? The short answer, and there are verses that talks about your questions too that I'm gonna go to specifically. But I'm gonna first finish with this about the women's attire, then I'll get to the men's attire as well. But to answer your question in short, yes, there are verses that talk about men, not so much dressing modestly, but dressing in a way that is provocative in nature. But usually when it's talking about stuff like that, it's in terms of being gay. So in other words, men wearing tight-fitting clothes for the sake of other men desiring them. Not so much women desiring them.
Yeah, too. Men.
That's what I'm saying.
Like that for me.
Purpose.
No, that's what I'm saying. The verses that we're gonna go to, at least one of them specifically, is speaking to that. Okay. Speaking to men desiring it. Alright. There are no verses specifically that talks about men wearing provocative clothing for the sake of attracting women. There are no, the only verse that comes close to that, which I wasn't thinking about, is when King David was dancing for the Most High, and it said that some of his clothes was like revealing himself, and that's the reason that McCall had an issue with that. We can actually go to that too, but let me do this first, and then we'll get to that. So, to the apparel, about modest apparel, we got two more verses real quick. In the book of Proverbs chapter 7. It says here, now in Proverbs chapter 7, this is talking about a man teaching a young man to stay away from strange women, right? I'm not going to read this whole thing, but in verse 1 it says, my son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with you, right? So he's giving wisdom, especially to a young man, because he's calling him a son, all right? It says that the they here is talking about wisdom, keep thee from the strange woman, from the stranger which flattered with her words, right? So now it's talking about this young man, void of understanding, trying to keep him away from strange women. Look at the characteristics of this woman. It says in verse 10, and behold, there met him, this young man, void of understanding, a woman with the attire of an harlot. You have to ask yourself, what is the attire of a harlot? Right? We know that the word harlot means a woman who has multiple sexual lovers. What is her attire? Her attire is something that is going to attract said lovers. All right, and it says, son of a heart. Okay, so this is something that lets us know that there is, in fact, a godly woman standard of dressing, okay, and an ungodly woman standard of dressing. And we clearly know the difference between the two. Furthermore, if you go to your Apocryphas, all right, this is coming from Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, chapter 26. Ecclesiastes chapter 26, this is giving you, literally, the whole verse is giving you the difference between a wicked woman, all right, and a godly woman. If you read down to verse, here we go, right here. It says in Ecclesiasticus again, this is chapter 26. I'll read verse 23 through 26. A wicked woman is given as a portion to a wicked man, but a godly woman is given to him that feareth Yah. A dishonest woman, contempt, shame. This word contempt means is disgusted by it, is repulsed by it. She, contempt, shame. What shame? Shame is covering yourself. Okay? Shame is covering your nakedness. What did it say? Adam and Eve was in the garden and they were what? Naked and not ashamed. Okay? So shame is covering yourself. Why? Because what did they do when they realized that they were naked? They covered themselves. Okay? A dishonest woman, aka a harlot, she contends with this because she doesn't want to do it. That's the point. But an honest woman will reverence her husband. It says a shameless woman, meaning a woman that does not cover herself, a shameless woman shall be counted as a dog. But she that is shamefaced, again, will fear Yah. So the point here again is to show the stark contrast between the apparel that, and the reason why this talks about this with women more so than it does with men is because men are more likely to act on their desires on women especially, and there's a force aspect being that the man is the dominant gender among the two, so they can impose their will. This is why it's speaking so much to women with regards to that point. Now this is going to lead us into your question. So you asked about the, you asked about men's attire, all right? So if we go back to 2 Corinthians, I think that's 1 Corinthians chapter 6. All right. And you should know this verse because you actually brought this up in class one day about the people who will not make it into the kingdom of God, right? And it says in verse 9, know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of God? Be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor abusers of themselves with mankind. This word here for effeminate is talking about men who dress in a provocative way in an effort to lure men in. Because the same way these effeminate men, what they do is they put on the spirit of a woman. What do women do to attract men? They wear less clothes, or they try to be more revealing. What do these men do? Like you just said, they wear clothes as tight as possible so that you can see the curvature, the shape, etc. Right?
So skinny jeans and ones is alright if you heterosexual. That's what I mean. That's what I'm saying.
Not necessarily. The Bible doesn't speak to stuff like that. I will say that you do have scriptures like this, and this is the book of Job.
I get a boot cut. That's what I'm saying. Hey, you get a boot cut, like, you get a boot cut.
So now this verse is actually something that can be used to talk about the sagging. But nonetheless, the Bible doesn't really speak to people wearing skinny jeans because you have to remember there are things about this culture now today that are not even applicable to the time that these people were living. Okay, but right here, there was a concept of men sagging, and that goes way back. Okay, it says here in Job 38, this is when the Most High is speaking to Job. He tells him to gird up thy loins like a man, for I will demand thee and answer thou me. Okay, so what he's basically telling him at this point in time, Job was down on his luck. People who have read Job should know this. This is the point where he was at his lowest point. He's been speaking about, the things that he's been going through, and he is dressed in a way that shows that he is down. So he's telling them, gird up your loins. Your loins is talking about your pants or things that you wear to cover your bottom parts, to gird them up and basically get ready to get back to life. Right? So this verse kind of speaks to what you just said.
Pull your pants up.
Pull your pants. That's basically what he's telling you, pull your pants. And furthermore, just to give you the last verse that speaks to men dressing provocatively, this is probably the best you can get. In 2 Samuel chapter 6.
Oh no!
Let me see. Yeah. Right here in verse 20.
No!
If you go back up, it says, and right here in verse 16, this is what you're looking for around here. This is the closest thing that you can get to a man dressing in a way to attract women. Okay. As the ark of Yah came into the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through a window and saw King David leaping and dancing before Yah, and she despised him in her heart. So now she's in the house, she's looking, the people having a party, they dancing. And they brought the ark of Yah and set it in its place in the midst of the tabernacle that David had pitched for it, and David offered burnt offerings, etc. So now, when we go further, see, get straight to the point in verse 20. It said, and David returned to bless his household. So now the party's over. David has come back home. He's coming out to bless all his sons, his daughters, his wives, etc. And Michal, the daughter of Saul, came out to meet David and said, how glorious was the king today of Israel today, who uncovered himself today in the eyes of the handmaids of his servants, as one of the vain fellows shamelessly uncovered himself. Now, what is she saying? There's truth in what she's saying, but she's not saying it for a valid reason. She's saying it because she is Saul's daughter, and she is still upset about the fact that her father was removed from being king and David was put in his place. That's really why she's upset.
Well, she'll hate it anyway.
Well, right, but the point is, this is where that's coming from. But look what she says again. How glorious was the king of Israel today. Okay, glorious, she's being sarcastic. Who uncovered himself today in the eyes of the handmaids of his servants. She tried to play like she was trying to keep the law. Why? Because the handmaids of his servants are the men. The handmaids are the wives of the men. So what she's basically saying is, you're uncovering yourself, causing these women to be lusting after you, which is again, these women are married, so they're not supposed to be coveting after you. They have their own husbands, but they're looking at you. So she making it like this is a sin. And she compares them to who? As one of the vain fellows. Shamelessly uncovered himself. She calls him a vain fellow. This is actually a true statement. Why? Because it is vanity to try to uncover yourself for the sake of attracting or luring women. It's vain, it's purposeless.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
So we know that vain fellows do this, especially during this time. Okay? But the point is, she's trying to compare David to one of these men, which is actually a singular in itself because she's reproaching him. David responds, however he responds, you can read that on your own time, but again, this is the closest thing to what you just asked about in terms of men uncovering themselves to women. Any other questions or comments on that? We kind of strayed away a little bit, but we were actually doing Deuteronomy 22, again, this is the last chapter. So any other questions or comments about that? All right, let's move on to verse 6. Look at this. Look at this. It's for you brothers who got, chickens and stuff, right? It says, if a bird's nest chance to be before thee in the way, and in the tree or on the ground, whether they be young ones or eggs, and the dam sitting upon the young or upon the eggs, thou shalt not take the dam with the young. Okay? But thou shalt in any wise let the dam go, and take the young to thee, that it may be well with thee, and that thou mayest prolong thy days. So right here, basically, what he's telling you is, you can't take the female that's laying these eggs and the eggs themselves to then slaughter and use to eat. You can either take, you're only supposed to take the eggs. That's what you basically tell them.
So she can go and produce more.
Right, that's the point. And ultimately, these eggs represent what, because really you can't sacrifice eggs, but this law is very similar to the law that tells you when you have a firstling of your flocks or of your herd, that is supposed to be sacrificed to the Most High. You're not supposed to kill it and his mother. Okay, so this law kind of relates to those. But I think that's self-explanatory. Verse 8 is its own commandment. It says, when thou buildest a new house, then thou shalt make a battlement for thy roof, that thou bring thy blood upon thine house, if any man fall from thence. A battlement is talking about, like you know how when you go to like a balcony and there's a gate, a small little thing that's right there that's keeping you from falling over? That's what this is talking about. Because in the event that somebody falls from your roof and they die, that blood is going to be on your house. Is that clear? Good on that. Verse 10, thou shalt not plow, oh I'm sorry, I skipped this. Thou shalt not sow thy vineyard with diverse seeds. Right, so I think we mentioned this when we were talking about growing plants at what Rob's. It's telling you that you can't sow your vineyard with diverse seeds. In other words, you can't plot two seeds together in one pit. All right, it says, lest the fruit of thy seed, which thou hast sown, and the fruit of the vineyard be defiled. So it's letting you know, when you do this, this fruit is no longer good for you. Even though you might still eat it, the Most High is telling you this is defiled now. All right, thou shalt not plow with an ox and an ass together. Plowing is talking about things that we use tractors for now. You don't have to talk about that too much. Verse 11, thou shalt not wear a garment of diverse sorts, as of woolen and linen together. All right, so this law, again, this law can be taken a myriad of different ways. Some people take this to just mean you can't wear garments that are mixed with wool and linen. Some people branch it out to say that you can't wear any garment that is mixed of different fabrics. In other words, everything that you wear has to be 100% whatever the material is. Okay? You could take that either way. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you what's a right or wrong answer to that. But anyway, that's the ways that you can take that. Verse 12, or excuse me, let me stop here. Do you have any questions or comments about this? Or as to why I just said what I just said about this?
Plain.
All right. Verse 12, thou shalt make thee fringes upon the four quarters of thy vesture, wherewith thou coverest thyself. You see where it says four quarters here? This is where you get the concept of the tzitzits from. I don't know if anybody has ever seen those before, but that's what the Jewish people wear. You'll see like the little strings that flow from their garments.
What's the word you use?
That's the word that it uses.
What you said?
Yes, that's the word that it uses here. So this word for fringes, when you look it up, actually, I don't know why it's not using it here. I thought it used it here. No. Okay. So, yeah, they don't use it here. But Twist the thread tassels. Let me see. I forgot how you spell it. I know I'm gonna spell it wrong. These right here. All right. So what some people do is, let me try.
All right.
What some people do is instead of wearing,
Right. Yup.
instead of wearing fringes in a border blue or border purple, people wear this. All right. It really doesn't matter which one you wear. The point is that you look upon it and remember to keep the commandments. Okay. So however you want to interpret that verse, if you want with this, if you want to wear the border blue, if you want to wear the tassels, it's really up to you. All right, because it's the same law. It's reverting back to the same thing in Numbers 15.
Should we be wearing fringes today?
Yes. Yes, you should. Listen, all of these commandments that are, the only way that you can do any of these commandments is not because you don't want to, it's because that it makes no sense to. Like, look at this commandment right here. It says you should not plow with an ox or an ass together. Plowing is when you make rows, like we did to grow the food that we grew. But do we use oxes and asses to do that now? We use tractors and attachments. So this law should still be kept now. In other words, if you didn't have a tractor and you needed to use animals, which is what people had to use before there was machines, you still would have to keep this. So let's say we don't have more gas for the engines.
Some
for the
people still
tractors.
do that today though.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. Let's say for whatever reason, you just can't use the machines no more. And you see how hard of work that is. But you got these bulls. You attach some rope, you tie it to a rock or whatever the case is, you set it in the grass, and you just make them go. And what they'll do is they'll just drag this rock and it'll make a rope. If you decide to do that, that's fine. You just can't use an ox and an ass together. So all of these commandments are applicable today unless they're not. And it's not because of whether or not you want to do it. It's really a matter of whether it's possible to even put it in place. Okay? And that's why I'm going over this.
For one, they're gonna be off balance.
All right.
The ass gonna be working way harder than the ox.
That's the point. That's the point. And it's unjust. Okay? And it gets a false
Ass
balance.
live in a cow big, so he gonna have to work double to keep up with cow have to work hard. Yeah, he gonna have to work way hard to keep up with it.
And for whatever reason, they got people who teach not to wear fringes. I don't know why. Like, there's nothing in the Bible that's telling you that. Nothing.
Yeah, they got congregation, you can't
You
do
can
it.
put out an LG, them on.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, you can't come in them.
You can't, parking lot,
You can't go
don't
with
push
a
you, gonna get you in
friend.
the parking lot.
You
It's
can't
a
come
caution.
in
Let's
there.
just get you in the box.
You can't come in there.
Yeah, you don't turn around, take
And
that
the
off.
purpose is because they said the laws is on the table in the heart, so you don't have to wear the fringe.
Okay, that's not true. All right. I'll get into that later if I need to.
You spoke to purpose though. You said because of the purpose.
Right.
That is the purpose to remind you to keep the law. But if it's on our
No. That's the purpose. That is different from saying the commandments are on your heart, because the commandments are not on your heart.
yeah, we're not in the new covenant.
That's my point. Those are the two
Yeah,
totally
that's
different
totally
things.
different, yeah.
And so if I need to explain that, I will. It's no problem. I want to get to this first. This also applicable. All right. So let's look at this right here. This is also a part of Hebrew culture. It says, if a man take a wife and go in unto her and hate her, and give occasional speech against her, and bring up an evil name upon her, and say, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I found her not a maid. Okay, I need you to really understand what this means. When it says maid here, this is talking about a virgin. All right. The way you bring up an evil name upon this woman is by basically saying, when I got married to her, she was not a virgin upon marriage, because in Hebrew culture, most men got married to virgins. They were virgins upon their wedding. All right, and the only time it was not the case if you married a widow, a divorced woman, etc. But most of the time, it was typical for you to have this scenario come up, which is why they're making this point. It says, then shall the father of the damsel and her mother take and bring forth the tokens of the damsel's virginity unto the elders of the city and the gate. Now, what is the tokens? The tokens is, in our culture, and in many Eastern cultures, what would happen is, whenever you had the marriage ceremony, the parents of the woman would be in the same home or like you said, it doesn't matter. They be in the same home that the man and the wife would consummate their marriage to ensure that whenever the woman broke her hymen, she had a thread or a piece of cloth underneath her to wipe the blood that would signify that she was in fact a virgin upon marriage. Many people still do this to this day, and this is something that Hebrews are supposed to do, because it says here, and the damsel's father shall say unto the elders, I gave my daughter to this man to wife, and he hated her, and lo, he had given occasional speech against her, saying, I found not thy daughter a maid, meaning she wasn't a virgin upon marriage. So now, assuming that this was the case, it says, yet these are the tokens of our daughter's virginity, and they shall spread what? The cloth. Okay, when they spread the cloth, what is it going to show? It's going to show blood, all right, from the broken hymen. It says, before the elders of the city, and the elders of that city shall take that man and chastise him, all right, and he shall immerse him, excuse me, and they shall immerse him in 100 shekels of silver to give unto the father of the damsel, because he had brought up an evil name upon a virgin of Israel, and she shall be his wife, he may not put her away all his days. So typically, men would try to do this if they were, trying to backbite on the commitment, on the relationship, whatever the case is. A lot of times this happens, especially when you're operating just off of your flesh. And once you consummated your marriage, you're not trying to say, oh, well, I don't really want this, or, you're second guessing. This law is preventing that from ever happening, because that's the only way that you can try to get out of this in a legitimate way, all right?
Yeah, unless the clock was clear.
This is assuming that the cloth is not clear.
Yeah, that's assuming the clock is not clear. But if it's clear, you can't get out of it.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about next. It says, but if this thing be true, meaning if the man did consummate the marriage and she wasn't a virgin upon marriage, it says, and the tokens of virginity be not found, or like you said, in your case, the tokens are found, but ain't nothing on it, then they shall bring out the damsel to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her with stones that shall die, because she had wrought folly in Israel to play the whore in her father's house. So shall thou put evil away from among you. So again, that's what I'm saying. A lot of these things that we're reading about people don't even know this stuff. Okay? We don't even know this stuff. But this is a part of our culture. Whenever we would get married, it was customary. You actually read about this in the Bible, in the book of Tobit. When you see Sarah and Tobias get married, Sarah's parents are right there in the next room, waiting. That's because of this right here. When you read about Jacob, when Laban gave Leah to Jacob, after they had the marriage ceremony, they were right there in the same house, okay? Because of this right here, this is customary, this is practice, this is cultural. And this is the stuff that really shows whether or not somebody actually believes this or not. I'm just gonna be honest with you, okay? Any questions or comments on this? Any questions or comments on this? All right, 22. This is a law in and of itself. If a man be found lying with a woman married to an husband, then they shall both of them die, both the man that lay with the woman and the woman, so shalt thou put evil away from Israel. This is talking about adultery here, okay? The man is found lying with a woman married to a husband, both of them die. Reason? So that you put away evil from among you, okay? See that same phrase, just keep on getting it. Any questions or comments? 23. If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto an husband, and the man find her in the city and lie with her. Now I want you to pay attention to this. It said, if a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto an husband. Is she a wife? She is a wife. Because why? The process has started. Exactly. That means that the man has went to the woman's father. He has asked for her permission in marriage, and the father has said, yes, I'm fine with you taking my daughter. Now the process gets rolling, and the dowry is then stated, and then the man goes about trying to fulfill that dowry, depending on how long it takes. For example, Jacob, what did he say to Laban? I'll work for you for 7 years. So the moment he goes to Laban and says that I want your daughter, and I'll work for you for 7 years. As soon as Laban says yes, Rachel is now his wife. Okay? That's what this law is telling you.
Give me
Now,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
The interlinear, let me see betrothed in the Strong's. I left my phone in the car.
No problem.
So that's engaged. Where does consummation happen?
Consummation.
In terms of applying the word wife. How is that the wife prior to consummation?
So I want to make this very clear. There is no Hebrew word for wife in the Bible.
Yeah, you said that before.
The word for wife in the Bible is the same word for woman. It's Isha. So Ish is man, Isha is woman. So in Hebrew, when you'll read it, it'll say Jacob and his woman. That's what it actually says, all right, in the Hebrew. But the way they translate it, because they know that Jacob married this woman, the translators write wife there. Because in the English context, we know that wife is when you have married a woman, okay?
So to Sister Leah's question, wife, semantically speaking, whatever the word is, what we use in wife today.
You have to take out wife today if you're gonna look at it like this. It's just either you're a woman
So there is no
or you're
wife.
someone's woman. That's what I'm trying to explain. There's no word for wife in Hebrew. There is no word. The same word that'll be applied to a wife is the same word that'll be applied to a single woman. And the word is Isha. So either you're a woman or you're someone's woman. That's the difference.
So that means I gotta look at engaged different, betrothed or espoused.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
prior to.
Right. Wait, why do you have to look at that different?
To engage for matrimony, because that tells me prior to. That's before marriage.
Yes, but how are you coming? This is what I'm saying. In Matthew 18, what does Christ tell us? When the disciples bring him a little child, he says what? He picks up this little child and says, whosoever becomes as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom. Why did he say that? Same thing he says in John 3, and verse 3 through 5, when he's talking to Nicodemus. You have to be born again. The reason for him saying that is because, especially now, when we come into this truth, we bring stuff with us. We bring philosophies, doctrines, things and experiences that we've developed living in this ungodly society. So here, that's called a fiancé, right? You're not a wife.
But that's not all the same thing.
Well, it's not the same thing here.
Fiance, betrothed, engaged, I can't use those words interchangeably in a biblical understanding. Not today, but in a scriptural understanding.
Just to make sure I understand you're not asking a question, you're trying to understand what I'm saying.
In question form, yes, I'm trying to understand what you're saying in question form. If I look at betrothed, espoused, what's the word we're looking at here?
This is for betrothal.
For betrothed, okay, still as betrothed.
Yeah.
Fiance, engaged. Those words can't be used or can be used where the question lies interchangeably prior to marriage.
Technically, yes, they can be.
But you said if the dowry is met and the agreement is made between the mother and the father, they're already married.
Yes.
I don't see how I can.
No. What I'm saying is they're already considered husband and wife.
Considered.
Yes. And we're gonna prove that, right? Because we haven't gotten to it. But no. This is good because it's good that you going step by step in this process, right?
Right.
The reason why I'm saying this is because there's a lot of words in English that we have in our mind that are not conducive to what we're reading here in Hebrew. This is why I pointed out in that lesson that I did about the tools that we have now. You gotta use them to bring your understanding to another level. Because if you're gonna continue to operate in English, I'm not saying that you can't find the wisdom of God. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is you're gonna miss stuff, and you're gonna miss stuff like this all the time, all the time.
Absolutely.
So technically, a fiance or someone who is engaged or whatever, in this modern context, in a Hebrew thought, this woman is already the wife to this man in a Hebrew context. Even though the word wife is not a Hebrew word, you can't find no Hebrew word for this. Hebrew is very much simplified. It's either you're a woman or you're someone's woman. And in this context, when you're engaged, you're starting the process of being this man's woman.
Right. The process to.
Right, the process. And the process is what? The process is man sees woman, wants woman, or parents of man sees woman that they want to take for a son. They go to the woman's father, they ask for permission, the woman agrees, the father agrees. Then that process starts. The dowry is then made, and then you meet it. So if the man says, look, you gotta pay me
3,000.
if a man can say that, a man can say, I want 3,000 for you to take my virgin daughter in marriage. And if the man cannot do that, well, it's no problem, you just can't marry her. And then at that point, now this woman is no longer betrothed to this man anymore. She is now a single girl. Okay, so it's almost like a pending process, in other words. But the Bible is going to tell you this though. It's not me saying this.
It's like a layaway.
Whoa.
I mean, but I don't get it. I mean, you're not my wife yet. I don't.
Yeah, it's like
I-
soon as you
Nobody else can
ask-
give it up.
I can't bring them together. I understand
Yeah,
the principle,
nobody-
but in the process, I just
Nobody
can't tie it together because I want to use the word wife.
Brother Ricky, say that again.
Nobody else can get her.
Just go ask them.
Exactly. The reason why she's called a wife to you is because you have already started that process.
So nobody else should get my girlfriend.
Nobody can.
That's not
Unless you
true.
don't come up with the diary or whatever the dad wanted for
Legally.
legally. If you want 3,000,
What happened to King David?
3,000.
What happened to King David? King David wanted to marry Michal. Okay? Saul said, I'll give her to you if you bring me back 100 foreheads of the Philistines. Meaning he wanted to skin their foreheads and bring it to him. That's the dowry. He said, I don't want no money. I don't want no resources, no gold, no silver, no shekels, no nothing. Bring me back 100. Because he wanted David to die. That was a way for him to get David to die. David came back with 200 foreheads of the Philistines. So that means what? He met the dowry. He is now eligible to finish or consummate this marriage. They never consummated. They didn't finish that process. So you said nobody else should be able to get your girl, right? In theory, nobody else should be able to get your girl. According to this law, nobody else can get the woman who you are now trying to take as your wife. But we know that people didn't always keep the law. And so if that's the case, somebody can say, well, they ain't married yet. They haven't consummated yet. So I feel like I can take this woman.
So with David and Michal, it said she didn't bear him children. Does that mean that they never consummated?
No, they consummated. She just never had children for David.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
And by that time, she had
They
been
just
with
said
another
at that
man
point,
too. So we have to understand
That's
that
what I'm getting.
she had a husband that David took her from. Okay. We can get into that.
That's
later.
another story. Yeah, that's
But this is letting you know what the case is. Again, in verse 23, it says, now, just to put this in context, we just read the law about adultery, okay? That was in the previous verse. This verse said, if a man be found lying with a woman married to an husband. This verse proceeds after it because it's the same point, it's just giving you a different
I was reading this
circumstance.
the other night.
If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed to who?
To a husband.
Look what it calls this man. It don't say to a man who is just want to be with her. It says to a husband and a man found her in the city. Just want to point
So
out.
if there's no Hebrew word for wife, there is a Hebrew word for husband.
No,
Still, neither.
no, that's not. That's why I'm about to do this right now.
I'm sorry.
You see this word for husband? Ish. You see this word for man? Ish.
Mm-hmm.
Two, same Hebrew word, ish, 376.
Mm-hmm.
They translate this as man, they translate this as husband.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Again, don't look behind the language, you will miss these little things and it might go off your understanding. Alright, I know it's tedious, but it is what it is. Again, verse 24, then you shall bring them both unto the gate. So who? The man who did not betroth this woman. And you shall stone them with stones that they die. Same punishment as adultery. Most High said the same. Why? The damsel, because she cried not being in the city. In other words, she consented.
Yeah. She didn't scream out.
Right.
She went on with it.
All right, it says, and the man, because he had humbled, look what it says, he's humbled his neck. Humble means to the virginity. His neighbor's wife. That word there is woman. Exactly.
Ish and what's for
Ish,
wife, what they use for wife? Ish for man and what? Isha?
Yeah, Isha.
Jay has to go through it. All right.
Is and Isha.
Yeah, S-A. see how it's
Same
translated?
thing.
Look at this. It's translated as wife 425 times. That means 425 times you read wife in the Bible, the word here is just woman.
And 324 times for woman.
It translates woman. But
Wow.
if you look at the reason why this is the case, the reason why this is the case is the context. If the context suggests that this woman is married to a man, they'll call her a wife. If the context suggests that this woman is just a random woman somewhere for whatever
They
reason,
call her a woman.
they'll call her a woman. It's no different. All right.
That's too much.
Here we go. All right, and you gotta consider the whole Bible is like this with multiple words. 25.
One more question.
Yeah, what?
Is there a word in wife and husband in the Greek?
I believe so, yes.
We have one in the Greek, but not in the Hebrew.
No.
Go ahead. Let's play further.
Verse 25. Hold on, before I do that, any other questions or comments? I know that can be kind of confusing, but I do want to make sure that everybody's getting this. Because that is critical, okay?
I don't really have an answer to my confusion. It's just, you know what I mean? As if one we're going to talk about when I get there.
Yeah, you just starting the process later than when it starts. You're starting after consummation is finished. That's not, that's
What
not,
does consummate mean? To finish.
right, it means to finish the process, but
Right,
it's to finish the
that's
process.
culmination.
Right, but what started the process?
The diary.
The dowry or the commitment.
Right, that's what starts it. So once it's started, it's assumed that it's going to finish. And because it's assumed that it's going to finish, that is the start of this man and this woman's union.
But it culminates at consummation.
That process ends at culmination.
Abraham entered into Hagar and she became his wife.
Right.
Right then.
Hold up. Now, this is why I'm saying this, because this is where false doctrines come up. You have brothers who believe that,
Hey, look, yeah, 5 minutes to 5.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you have brothers who believe that as soon as you have sex with a woman, that makes her your wife now. That is not true.
I used to look at that. Not true.
Okay. But what you're saying, listen, but what you're saying would suggest that if it's consummation is intercourse. That's when it's finished. By suggesting that there are times where that happens, where you don't see the process beforehand, but it occurred, and then it ends, and then you see, okay, he became or she became his wife. Give me an example. Let me finish this up right quick because we're running out of time. In Genesis 24, many brothers use this to say this, all right? And this is not true. This is why I'm making this point. In verse 60, yeah, right here. All right. So it's talking about Rebecca and Isaac. All right. It says Rebecca lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she lighted on the camp. Right. She goes to him. Verse 66, it says the servant told Isaac all the things he had done, and Isaac brought her, talking about Rebecca, into his mother's Sarah's tent, and took Rebecca, and she became his wife, and he loved her. And Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. So now right here, brothers will say, well, look, this was the consummation. This was the part where they ended that process. Although Abraham had sent the servant out way prior, okay, right here, it says she became his wife. Okay?
But commitment and dowry had already been established.
Exactly.
So consummation culminated.
Right.
So that, oh, never mind, let's go to the next one. We gotta go. We can talk about this all night.
I got you.
I don't believe that's an answer to my question.
All right, so, where we at? Okay, verse 25, but if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her and lie with her, the man only that lay with her shall die, but unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in the damsel no sin worthy of death, for as when a man riseth against his neighbor and slayeth him, even so is this man. Right? Well, he found her in the field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save. Any questions on that? All right, verse 28. I'm not going to do the whole lesson on this, I promise. It says, if a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, and they hold on her, and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife. Because he hath humbled her, he may not put her away all his days. Please do not let anybody use this verse to try to suggest to you that a woman has to marry her rapist.
Mm-hmm.
This is not what this verse is saying. I'm pretty sure I've done lessons on this in the past, if I need to do that, I can. But what this verse is actually saying is, if you have two consenting adults and the woman is a virgin, because the man did not go through the process of asking permission and getting the dowry and establishing it, he skipped that part and just decided to lay with this woman. She has to become his wife, and he still has to pay the dowry, which here is 50 shekels of silver at this particular point in time. So he's just letting you know that if somebody decides to skip that process, you still have to go through that process of providing a dowry to that father of the woman. Okay? Like I said, I could do a whole lesson on this, but I'm not going to do that, obviously. So, any questions or comments about that? All right. It says, the man shall not take his father's wife, nor discover his father's skirts. This is talking about uncovering your father's nakedness. Examples, Reuben and Jacob's wife. So, with that being said, any other questions or comments? All right. I know we kind of went a little over, but.
So was they allowed to break the, engagement or the betrothal at any point? Once you became betrothed, say if you decide to break off, like today people get engaged and then they decide, oh, I don't want to be married.
Yeah, that has happened, and that can happen. As long as it's agreed upon. Like, we know that happens because if the man is not able to provide the dowry, then you can't get her anyway. So it's not like, you're forced to not marry this woman after you've started the process. So yes, it could be called off to answer your question specifically. All right. Any other questions or comments? Any prayer requests? All right, guys, let's go ahead and close out. Go ahead to today's service. Make sure that we got no questions on here. Heavenly Father, we just want to come to you now and say thank you for allowing us again to gather here in your holy Sabbath. Father, we ask that you continue to pour out your spirit upon us, that we may love our neighbors as ourselves and commit to you with our whole heart, soul, and mind. Father, we ask that you just continue to pour out your spirit upon us, that we may do that which is right in your sight. We thank you for all the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that you have given us. We thank you for your mercy and your grace, because you could have cast us off at any point in time, but you gave us your Son, that he may die for our sins and was bruised for our iniquities and for our transgressions. And we just thank you for giving us that grace and showing us that mercy, that we may do that which is right in your sight and become adopted sons and daughters to you, back into your covenant. We ask these things, we ask that you forgive us and our fathers of all of our sins, iniquities, and transgressions. In your holy name, in your holy Son's name we pray. So be it. Be straight.
You personally, son, I got my shop on my I know this. He's already out there. I already know.